Hello, I'm Michel Gagné, and you are listening to the Real-Time Visual Effects Podcast, where wizards reside.
You have a gift. You have a passion for creation. There's something inside you that wants to express itself, and that something has led you to explore the world of visual effects, a place where magic happens, and the only limitation is your imagination. All the greatest artists in the world started somewhere, learning and growing into the people they are today. You being here is the first step to building your legacy as an artist. Learn from the best and brightest in the real-time visual effects community. Sharpen your skills and be your best self.
Today's interview features Alex Redfish, a senior visual effects artist at Riot Games, currently working on the new fighting game Project L. Alex is well known for his 2D visual effects style that he brings to the table. I am always amazed at how much creativity and ingenuity he puts into each of his hand-painted effects that he creates, and I'm excited to share that amazing journey with y'all today. That said, let's dive in.
Here is your host, Travis McCallum.
Hey everybody, I've got Alex Redfish here. He is a senior visual effects artist at Riot Games and has worked at other studios like Airship Syndicate and Blizzard Entertainment with Diablo 4. Alex, how you doing today, man?
Hey, doing all right. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. I'm staying locked indoors with quarantine going on, but the weather outside is beautiful. It is like almost 90 degrees here in Dallas.
Yeah, I don't know what 19 degrees means. I know Celsius, but it's pretty hot out here as well in Bay Area.
Oh, are you in San Francisco?
Next to it, it's Redwood City.
Oh, well, cool, man. So, Alex, I want to jump into all the cool stuff that you're doing in the visual effects industry. But before we get started, can you tell me, how did you get started in visual effects?
Yeah, sure. I think like my first VFX job was in 2011 maybe or 12, and I started as a just generalist artist, I guess that's the word, where I did character art, environmental art, character animations, and also VFX in a small startup company making games for social networks. And it gave me the chance to try like every type of art you can do, I guess, for games. And I enjoyed making VFX the most. So I started publishing my works online on DeviantArt, and then I started receiving job offers and commissions. So I slowly shifted into VFX artist role, and I do character art just as a hobby.
So thinking back, like when you first got into games, what was it that really attracted you to that area in the first place? Did you have any kind of inspiration or things that kind of thought, oh, I want to do that someday?
I mean, I love games. I've been playing games for my whole life, and I love drawing. I've been drawing for my whole life as well. And originally, I was trying to get a job in the animation industry, but ended up landing one in the video game industry, so that worked too. And even right now, half of my projects are in animation, and half of them are in video games. So I kind of in between two worlds here.
Yeah, so you're a jack of all trades, a renaissance man. A lot of experience in a lot of areas, well-rounded in that sense.
Well, I won't say that. It's more of actually like my skill set is very specific and limited, I would say. I do hand-drawn 2D frame-by-frame animations. That's like my main thing. And sometimes games need it, sometimes animation needs it. So, but like most of the games right now, they need 3D VFX, which I'm not as experienced with, and basically not as good at doing this type of VFX. And frankly, it's not as fun for me.
Yeah. So why 2D effects then? What is it that really kind of draws you toward that area as opposed to 3D?
I enjoy drawing, and I feel like in 3D VFX, when you're making like noises and UV distortions and all this meshes, vertex offsets, it's very technical. And sometimes when I work on 3D VFX, like I don't touch my stylus for weeks, so I don't draw at all. Versus when I make 2D hand-drawn frame-by-frame animation, it's drawing. Just you're drawing every frame and I enjoy it a bit more, and it's fun.
Talking about drawing, for somebody who's maybe never drawn, a thing in their life, what is some advice or like tips you have in learning how to draw? Where can we get started, and how do we stay sharp and to really kind of flex that drawing muscle?
There are definitely, everyone has their own way of learning and progressing. I'm very bad at following any courses or I guess traditional rules of drawing. So I think that's in some ways it's my weakness, where I don't know all the basics. Basically, I kind of always was self-learning, and I lack a lot of knowledge, but I enjoy this learning process a bit more versus just schools and courses. But just find what works for you. There are a lot of good schools online and offline, but I think you can succeed in just if you enjoy the process. Just look at the other art, find something that inspires you, and try to understand what you like about this drawing, and
cool, man.
Just copy it to your works. Not directly copy and paste, but try to get the idea of the concept that makes you enjoy this art piece.
Yeah. In the world of real-time visual effects, we often have a very ambiguous definition for what real-time visual effects are. So what is your personal definition of what makes up RTVFX?
It's like I mentioned, I prefer handmade frame-by-frame animation. So for me, that's visual effects. It's not real-time usually involves procedural stuff a bit more, I guess, where frame by frame animation is more towards the other one. I don't know how it's called, pre-baked or pre-made, pre-rendered. I guess that's the word. But it's interesting, in RTVFX community, I guess, and just in this job, there are so many different types of people working in this field. Some of them are lean more towards technical aspects, some of them more towards artistic. And sometimes you can find people doing the same, with the same job title, with a completely different skill set. And I think it's important for people to understand that there are different skill sets involved in this job, I guess. So you don't hire people that you don't need, or you don't hire people to do the job that they're not comfortable doing. Just like me, don't hire me for technical stuff, I guess.
Yeah, absolutely. Jason Keyser is a good example of that from what I've heard. He often says that he's very artistically oriented, and once you get into the shader stuff, that's just kind of above his pay grade is the way he described it. So he'd rather be on the art side and less on the tech side.
Yeah, that's very similar to what I'm doing.
So thinking back maybe 5-10 years ago when you first started into visual effects, what are some things that you'd wish you had known when starting out?
I guess that's not very VFX related, but just for your artistic goals related. And it might sound bad for some people, but don't try to work, don't make companies your dream. I guess that's the way to say it. Try to find what you actually enjoy doing. And if some of the companies do the stuff that you enjoy, that's great, work with them, but don't make the corporation the goal itself.
Yeah, so don't think of it I'll take any job I can get at Blizzard. I'll be QA, I'll be animator, I'll be programmer. Instead, focus on the craft, and whatever company takes you for that craft, that's the blessing in itself.
Yes, and I feel that will give you more enjoyment of what you're doing versus just, I guess, this status and pride of working for popular good company. And that's something that I learned.
Okay, man. Okay. What are you really into right now? What's something that you're curious about in the world of visual effects?
Stylized stuff. And I'm achieving the stylized look with flipbooks. A lot of people are achieving it with procedural stuff. And most of the time it's very noticeable when it's frame by frame handmade animation versus procedural stylized. But some projects get closer and closer to blending this gap and making stylized VFX that look hand-drawn.
And can you just explain to me, what is stylized, and what would you contrast it to?
I guess like you have Battlefields and Call of Duties, which are more like simulating real life, and stylized is very broad definition as well. You can go as far as being like super cartoony, like Looney Tunes, or I guess like League of Legends is stylized but not as cartoony, and anime is stylized visual effects. That's kind of my point of reference for my works, I guess.
Okay. What's something, Alex, that maybe you've worked on and you failed at, and how did you handle that, and what kind of lesson did you take away from that experience?
So I've been working before, like I came to the US a year and a half ago, but to work at Blizzard in-house. But before that, I worked almost exclusively remotely as a freelancer for 6 or 7 years. And what I learned is you need a community, like other fellow VFX artists, to learn from them, to ask for advice. And there are benefits of figuring out everything on your own. You can come up with some non-standard ways of doing things, but a lot of times just reach out to people, ask them questions about the craft.
So was there maybe an example at some time in your life where you found that if only you had consulted with the community, you would have saved a lot of time and effect that you may have done?
So on the project Battle Chasers Night War, I was the VFX guy. I didn't know a lot about Unity or like 3D VFX in general. So the way that I set up all my effects was just awful. And every flipbook texture, let's say I have like a fire flipbook texture and I need a green fire flipbook texture. The way I did it, make a second texture, which is like green with a pre-rendered color. And it ended up in like 5 versions of pretty much the same thing. And the texture memory was absurdly large, where it would be way more efficient to use grayscale textures and then color them maybe with gradient maps on or color tints or something like that. And that's just something I didn't know about, and I didn't have anyone to ask how to do this stuff. At least like I didn't know any people personally, but you can always ask questions online.
Totally, man. So looking at the work of your stuff, or maybe the work of others, what are some things that you're looking for when you're seeing that work?
I value unique look a lot these days, I guess. And I guess that just because of working in one field for a long time, you kind of get bored of the same stuff over and over again. How many fire flipbooks can a person make? And it gets a bit boring with time. So I'm looking for just unique approaches and new ways of stylizing or new ways of rendering certain animations. Like, for example, it's not, I guess, VFX, but the character rendering. Have you seen the Klaus on Netflix animated movie?
No, but I'm going to see it now that you're telling me about it. It's called Klaus. How do you spell that?
KLA, like a Santa Claus.
Yeah, that's what it sounds like. Okay.
Yeah, and they have a very cool approach to character rendering, which you can apply to flipbooks if you're patient enough. So that's something I guess it's not like completely new, but you didn't really see this in animated movies this often, and it looks unique. And I really value that, like when people try to make something different.
Okay. Looking in the visual effects industry right now, Alex, what are some of the trends that you're seeing out there that are maybe in their nascent stages still, like growing or have potential, or maybe things that are really popular and are trending, just across the games or the film side of real time?
I'd say stylized effects. It's just not just effects, but I guess the trend in the industry, like character art and just the whole artistic vision for projects like Fortnite, Overwatch, where there are a lot of these cartoony looking games right now.
Did you see that Travis Scott concert that just happened recently?
I heard about it, but I haven't seen it.
Okay. I just wanted to see if you had an opinion on that. But
I mean, I think that's cool that we have this merging of medias, I guess. And it's also, I don't know the artist, I haven't seen it, but just the concept I like, because that's something new. Once again, people doing new stuff. It's exciting. And yeah, for the trends, stylized stuff.
Okay. I just want to understand, like, let's say I'm new to visual effects and I'm trying to figure out, well, how do I create, let's say, a campfire? How would you go about creating a campfire? Can you kind of talk me through what that workflow may look like from start to finish? Or maybe you have a project you worked on in the past, you can give an example, just so I can understand that pipeline.
Yeah, there's the fun part about VFX that you can do things in like hundreds of different ways. And like my approach, my go-to approach would be just make a looping flipbook of a like fire, like campfire, and add some like amber particles and maybe some heat distortion if the project style allows it, maybe some smoke particles. Or you can go more procedural way where you have a billboard where you scroll, you have a mask and you scroll different noises through it, maybe with UV distortion as well. And you can go like more realistic, more stylized as well. The other approach is also flipbooks, but you don't make them by hand, but you use like fluid simulations and export flipbooks from this software, and it ends up looking like more realistic, I guess. Or you can just have like separate fire particles and have a particle emitter, and all these ways will result in different looking fires, which is cool.
Since hand-painted flipbooks is your bread and butter, talk to me like how you go about creating a flipbook that you could maybe import into game, and just maybe the programs or, you know, the steps. If we started like step 1, step 2, how would that look?
Yeah, sure. So the smart way of doing it is make a concept first, so you know what you're making. Sometimes I forget this step, and it sometimes ends up in you spend a lot of time making flipbook, and then make a concept, see if you can draw, or at least find some references so we can look at them and kind of imagine what you want to achieve before starting actually producing. For the flipbooks, I started using Procreate on iPad, which is exciting. I almost completely abandoned my Vacant tablet, and since Procreate added animation support, so I'm doing my flipbooks in Procreate. I export them as PNG sequences. Then I use sometimes I use Photoshop to adjust some frames, like add some glows or blurs, maybe adjust the values a bit. Then I use Texture Packer. What's it called? Yeah, software called Texture Packer. It just assembles all your PNG sequences in a sprite sheet. And yeah, you can then import it into your game engine. And if you have specific shaders set up, then you can use like color gradients to color your grayscale flipbooks. Or maybe it's a cool thing to add some UV noise to your flipbooks to, I guess, like make them look a bit less handmade, but in a good way.
Cool, man. Cool. So you're originally from Russia. What part of Russia?
Like near Moscow region.
Okay. What brought you to the US, and what was that transition like?
I was looking for in-house job, and I guess like I mentioned, working on Battle Chasers, that was my project, one of the projects before moving to the US, where I worked remotely, worked alone, and I just thought that, okay, I need to work around people to continue growing, and it's getting a bit hard to grow on your own, because I feel like there might be a limit there where you can get stuck without just fellow artists around you. So yeah, I applied to Blizzard and came here to the US working in-house. There was a lot of new things for me. Just it's a whole new country and it's working in-house, and I'm not used to it. I worked in the office before that, like 8 years ago, maybe for a year. And that's it. Most of my career, I worked remotely from home. So a lot of new things to learn. Just also, Blizzard is a huge company. It's not like a tiny indie studio. So teams are large and there are a lot of people. It's very big contrast from working alone from home. But it's cool. I learned a lot. I met a lot of new talented people. And yeah, it's been great so far.
Cool, man. How did you feel about studying graphic design at MHTA in Moscow? And how did that help in your VFX career?
It helped me to get work visa. That's pretty much it. It's a very low tier university. And I guess like the Russian educational system might be a bit different. I'm not sure, but I only went to the university one day per week, like on Sundays. So it's basically just for the degree, and I didn't learn that much.
Did you feel like most of your learning was self-taught to begin with, and you just spent a lot of time outside the classroom? Really?
Yeah, for sure. I was working while I was studying, so most of my experience is like from my jobs, and I enjoy self-learning process a bit more, just looking at the references and searching for stuff. It might be a bit slower, but I think it sticks better when you find out something on your own versus someone telling you how to do things. Mm-hmm. And also I like so let's compare going to school versus self-learning. In school, they teach you things. They give you answers to the questions you didn't ask yet. They just, here's how to do this, here's how to do that. But you didn't even ask how to do these things. Like you don't know that you need it. Versus when you self-learning, you encounter a problem. Okay, how do I do that? And then you start searching for an answer. I think that's a bit more efficient in some ways. But at least for me, it's definitely different people learn in a different ways.
Absolutely. And I feel like one of the big things I've seen from my schooling and my self-taught journey in visual effects is when you're in school, oftentimes they tell you what the goal or the objective is. So it's a very structured path on how things are achieved. But when you're learning on your own, anything can happen. Your imagination, your goal setting, that's very arbitrary and unique and specific to whatever you decide. So it's both scary and exciting at the same time because you can do practically anything. And that paradox of choice really kind of overwhelms you if you're not able to, quote, focus in on what you want to accomplish.
Yeah, definitely. But I think it can result, it's definitely like way more chaotic, and you have to have a certain set of minds to be able to stay focused and actually understanding what you want to do and where you want to move. But I think it allows for very personal experience where you have like your own way.
And like you said, a lot of times when you're involved with a community for visual effects, you can look at other people's effects and be like, whoa, how did he do that? And then you go on the rabbit hole of Google to really kind of search it out and figure it out. And maybe sometimes you reach out to the artist directly and ask him. Do you feel like from your perspective? I
rarely do that, but I should.
Being so popular with your 2D effects, do you feel like you get a lot of people reaching out to you, asking how you do things?
Sometimes. I tried making some, I wouldn't call them tutorials, but just, what's the right word? Like I recorded
it like a time lapse?
I guess time lapse, where it's just because that's the way I prefer to learn. So that's the way I prefer to present my workflow as well, where I'm not very good at explaining things. And when I learn, I don't really pay attention at people explaining things. So I just look at how they do things and try to understand the concepts. And I did some videos like that, and they were pretty successful, and I hope it helped some people to learn something.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but you've done visual effects for both gameplay effects, but also in the cinematic space.
I worked on some cinematics, and I worked on some movies as well.
Do you see any key differences between the cinematic VFX versus the gameplay VFX?
Yeah, sure. So for cinematics and animation, it's way less technical. You don't care about optimization all this stuff. You just think about what you want to see on the screen and you just make it. So it's very stress-free for me. I enjoy working on cinematics a lot. But the thing you don't have is the interactivity, I guess, because when working on games, you have to think about all this technical stuff, but in the result, you have interactive VFX that you can press a button and see an explosion. And it just different feeling where it merges like this tactile feeling of you doing stuff with the visual and with the sound as well. It just feels good. So sometimes you want to stop caring about optimization and you work on some cinematics.
Thinking about the interactivity aspect of it, do you ever end up kind of like injecting your own effects into the gameplay, maybe through like Unreal's blueprints or through Unity's like scripting? Do you kind of help out in that side of the pipeline with any of your effects ever?
Yeah, usually you're responsible. Well, it depends on the project, but VFX artists usually work close to animators and game designers to kind of hook up everything. And it's not just you're producing VFX like isolated and then some other people use them, because it's all very intervened together. No, that's the correct word, but
I'm going to say interconnected.
Interconnected,
Everybody's
yeah, sure.
connected, yeah. You work with the animators, you work with the riggers, you work with the technical, all over the place, yeah.
Because you want to get the right feeling, the right timing, the right fantasy, and so it should work with the game design. Like you don't make nuclear explosion for like basic fireball. You have to make your VFX look accordingly to the like power level of the ability or something like that.
Yeah. Alex, who are some of your role models that have inspired you in the world of visual effects or just in life in general?
I can say like artists' names that inspired me artistically, I guess. A lot of them are not VFX artists, but Joe Madureira, his great comic style inspired me a lot. And I think I use his works as a references for my VFX, even though he doesn't do VFX, but sometimes you can see some smoke or fire in his comics or drawings where, okay, that's a cool style. I can steal that from my flip books and try to recreate it.
What are some of his comics?
Well, Battle Chasers, I guess.
Okay.
Like his most known. And like he worked with DC and Marvel, a lot of big comics companies. What else? I'm very bad with artist names. I follow a lot of people on ArtStation, but I remember like the avatar of the profile. I remember the works they do, but I'm very bad with names.
Yeah, so. It could be a little bit more challenging when you have like their real names. And then they also have these like online aliases, right? So it's like flip-flop, when you're in game playing, Call of Duty, he's like Killer Ace 999. And then in real life, he's like, Joe Smo or someone. Yeah,
just like me. Alex Redfish is it's not my real name. It's my, I guess, artistic name. Because like my Russian name, when you work as a freelancer, your name is your brand. And to be successful in this field, you have to be recognizable and easy to remember. So Alex Redfish, I thought it sounds cool. And it seems like it's working out.
Yeah, it is. Definitely think your name stands out. Alex, are you ready to get into the lightning round? Quick and easy, just like visual effects?
Yeah. Let's do it.
What is the perfect getaway for one day in Los Angeles, California, and the surrounding area?
Nature, whale watching, love that. It's just being from Russia, where you don't have like ocean near Moscow. So it's cool being here near the ocean and being able to go on a boat and see some dolphins and whales. That's awesome.
That's super cool. I did not know whales were in the Pacific Ocean, right?
They're everywhere.
What video game or app are you using on your phone that is most fun?
Procreate and GarageBand.
What's GarageBand?
It's like music app. That's a hobby of mine to get away from art, so you're not burned out.
You got
It's very.
I was going to say, you got a favorite soundtrack or playlist that you put on repeat? Maybe kind of zone in when you're doing stuff?
Street Fighter V soundtrack. It's like 3 hours long on YouTube, and it's a perfect like set to get some work done for 3 hours. The soundtrack is over. Okay, take a break.
Nice. What is your favorite thing to cook or eat?
I don't know, noodles. I'm very bad at cooking, and I like very simple stuff, just rice and beans or something.
They have a place in Cali. I lived in Japan for 2 years called Coco's Ichiban Curry. And they have the best like curry and rice that I've ever had. So whenever you mention like noodles, I think Japan food immediately. I don't know why. What is your favorite book or podcast you've listened to recently?
I guess that's not really a podcast, but on YouTube, Adam Lucid Pixel videos, he does this great talks about being an artist, I guess, about some ways to improve, some struggles that the artists are facing. And it's very, I think, the things he says are very wise and calming and inspiring at the same time. So I would recommend that.
Good, man. Good. What's your favorite video game visual effect that you're jealous of that isn't your own?
Arc System Works games, they all have beautiful effects, from the Guilty Gear series to Dragon Ball Fighter Z, and now Grand Blue Fantasy versus. It's all fighting games, but that's what I love. And the way they're implementing stylized or frame-by-frame animation into these games is always enjoying to see what they come up with next.
I feel like in another life, you might be like an aspiring pro player in the fighting game scene.
Sure, it would be cool. I enjoy playing fighting games, and I have this, I like grinding stuff, I guess. Just practicing and like climbing tiers to improve. I kind of try to get away from it actually, because sometimes you focus on the grow and achievements a bit too much, where you start losing the enjoyment of the process itself.
Mm-hmm. I can relate with that 100%. Best advice for a first-time visual effects artist or people looking to get into the industry? Just
do something and post it. Don't think that you're not ready yet or you're not good enough yet to show your works. Just do something and find like a community, I don't know, like a Discord server or a website or something like local, and show it to people.
I was about to ask in terms of places where you recommend people should post their work to maybe get feedback or just to show it off. What do you think are some good places for that?
I don't know. Like, I'm giving this advice to people, and I'm giving this advice to myself as well, because I'm very bad at being a part of community, and I post my stuff on ArtStation or like Vimeo or YouTube, but that's not VFX only websites. So you get some feedback, but it just looks cool, looks bad, but not real feedback where you can learn something. And I don't know, man. I'm looking, but keep looking as well. Find something that
Absolutely.
works for you.
Like I feel like ArtStation is like the place for your art to show up case, because recruiters are there who can really kind of like, scout you out and give you job opportunities, whether you're looking or not. But it's also a chance for people to like subscribe and to follow your work. My question on that subject for ArtStation though, Alex, is should you only post your best work there, or is it okay not to post the best work?
I mean, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. Like, do whatever you want. There are no rules actually. If you're trying to land a specific job, then I think on ArtStation you can have like your profile works, your gallery, and you also can have like a separate portfolio page. And if you want to land a specific job, you can assemble portfolio specifically for the studio you want to work with. And in that case, just put something that close to what they're looking for. Get rid of all the unnecessary stuff. Because sometimes, like when you look through portfolios of applicants, there's definitely can be cases where if you didn't put this work here, we would have rated your portfolio a bit higher. And like this specific effect ruined the whole impression, because all other works look good, but how did you miss that this one is bad?
Yeah, that's good advice for sure. Has there ever been a question that you've never been asked that you wish you were asked more often?
I'm not sure. That's that's an interesting question. I don't think I have an answer for this right now. It's something to think about. I guess I had the time to think about, but I didn't come up with a smart answer.
It's all good, man. It's all good. Any final thoughts to plug? Any things you wanted to promote, maybe that you're working on or that you just want people to know about?
I mean, sure. Yeah, I'm working on a fighting game at Riot, which we announced some time ago, and it's very exciting for me. I hope I can do some great stuff for people to play our game and make fighting game community happy.
That's awesome, man. And can we find out more about that game now, or is it still kind of hush hush?
All the stuff that we can talk about, it's online. Just Google Riot Fighting Game. And
Riot Fighting Game. Okay.
Yeah, we announced it during League of Legends 10 years celebration. So there's not a lot of info on it, but it's out there.
Awesome. Alex, I want to thank you for your time today, being able to talk to us about your experience as a visual effects artist. It's been a real pleasure.
Sure. Thanks for having me.
Of course. Hey everyone, thanks for listening to today's episode with Alex Redfish. I hope you took some things away. The key takeaways that we have: number one, focus on your craft, not the company that you want to work for. When you focus in on the actual activity that you're doing, you'll find so much more satisfaction than trying to fit in a box that any individual company may have. Number two, it's okay to be specialized in one area. Some people would prefer working more on the art side of visual effects, and others more on the technical side. Find what your strengths and your interests and your passions are, and understand that there will always be a place for you in that area. Key takeaway number three, find your community. Don't work in a silo, because there are going to be issues and challenges you run into. Having other people to bounce ideas and to get feedback and critiques from is going to help your craft immeasurably. This was a great episode to do today, and I'm really excited to be doing the next episode with you shortly. Until next time, rock on.